So each sign, there's 12 signs, there's 12 houses. Each house has its corresponding sign, and each sign has its corresponding house. So the signs would be like an energetic filter. At least that's how I think of it. They're an archetype which then blends its energy with the sun, the moon, and the planet that happens to be in there, to where the house would be an area of life. That's how it's traditionally taught. I personally have found that they can go either way. So a sign could show up as an area of life, and a house could show up like the energetic filter of the sign which it corresponds to. So what I would invite everybody to do as we go about learning is to think of them as either or both. And to think of the houses as overlapping with the signs, and both the sign and the house being like an energetic filter, as well as describing areas of life which that planet or the sun and the moon's energy may be prominent. And that concept is also not explicitly said, but kind of implied in a number of astrology books that are in this cookbook format, where they'll talk about one planet, typically an outer planet, say like Saturn. There's a lot of books on Saturn. And they'll say Saturn in Aries or the first house, Saturn in Taurus or the second house, and then they'll give this description as if it's the same thing. So all these books are implying that it is the same thing, and perhaps it is, though it's typically not taught like that when the person's learning astrology.
Okay. And so we'll move on to the sign of Gemini, which is May 21st to June 20th. It's a mutable air sign ruled by Mercury. Gemini is dynamic, exciting energy. It's all about communication and variety. It's very fast moving. And I think a really great description of Gemini is quick-witted. Like, I think people that I've met that have strong Gemini in their chart have that energy. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah. So Geminis are known for liking to know a little bit about a lot of things, liking to interact with a lot of people a little bit. It's a very kind of fleeting, type energy. So it would be kind of the opposite of Taurus, in that it doesn't really, similar to Aries, in that it doesn't really necessarily stay with anything for all that long.
And so the third house is ruled by Gemini, and it's the house of communication. It's also described as being associated with siblings and childhood relationships. I've always found the third house to be hard to describe, so I'm hoping you can give more insight into it.
Yeah. So what I found with the third house is, I would agree that issues with siblings shows up there. I find people with a lot of third house energy interact with a lot of people. They're usually in work, but it could be from anything. They find themselves in a position where they just interact with a lot of people, like a little bit, So, I mean, especially in today's world, there's a lot of jobs that can fit that description. So very often people who have one of those types of jobs have third house. I've noticed a few people with third house moon or Gemini moon also have a lot of people over to their house. They kind of have those households where they host events, or they have a lot of friends who kind of come over every once in a while type thing. Yeah, so that's like, I've heard like third house also described as like travel around the neighborhood, to where ninth house would be like travel abroad. Yeah, and I would also add, like, your experience in school as a child will sometimes be described by what you see in the third house.